So let's talk about what happens with breath of fire. When we do breath of fire, we talk about utilizing the navel point and the solar plexus to energize the breath. So with breath of fire, we're going to be using those upper abdominal muscles on the exhale to force the air out a little bit. And we're going to be inhaling with the diaphragm. Now here's a point about breath of fire that's really interesting. The reason that breath of fire does not cause hyperventilation is because we're not moving much air with breath of fire. With breath of fire, if you think about the respiratory tract as a tube, which then branches into like a tree-like pattern to smaller tubes and then ultimately into the lungs. What's happening with breath of fire is you're taking some air in from the outside, pushing it down into the tube, which pushes some of the air that's already in the tube system deeper into the tube system. And it's a movement of air up and down this tube. That whole tubular structure, which is the bronchial tubes and their smaller subdivisions, there's no movement of oxygen or carbon dioxide across the walls of this airway. It's just a pathway down into the spongy lungs that are much deeper. So if you're moving air up and down this system, you're not actually taking outside air in and delivering it all the way down to the lungs. You're just moving it up and down. So there is a turbulence that's set up as we move air up and down. So you do get some oxygenation and some shift of the carbon dioxide out of the lungs, but it's not very much happening. So you can regulate how much air is moving with breath of fire, but it's not hyperventilation. Hyperventilation refers to what happens down in the lungs. It's the exchange primarily of carbon dioxide that defines hyperventilation. If you hyperventilate, if you actually do hyperventilate and you're moving a lot of air in and out of the lungs at a quick pace, what will happen is you'll blow off more carbon dioxide than you're used to. Carbon dioxide acts like an acid in the body. So if you remove more carbon dioxide than usual, you will shift the acid-base balance in your blood. You will alkalinize, not in the way we usually talk about the term as a good thing in food. You'll alkalinize the pH of the bloodstream for at least the time that you're hyperventilating. If you shift the pH balance of the bloodstream, it changes the amount of calcium that is bound to its carrier protein. And when you hyperventilate, what happens is there's more calcium bound to the carrier protein than usual, which gives you a low calcium level in your bloodstream, which affects the way your muscles contract. If you don't have enough calcium in the bloodstream, your muscles can eventually go into a spastic state. But before you get this full state of what we call tetany in hyperventilation, the symptoms of hyperventilation that precede that have to do with dizziness and shakiness and some of the things that people associate with panic attacks, because with panic attacks, people often hyperventilate. So if somebody is hyperventilating and they're getting dizzy and shaky, then they need to back off on their breathing to get their pH, their acid-base balance back to normal. But that's not what we do in breath of fire. And that's why the yogi said that you can do breath of fire for an hour and you've really only done one breath. So, if you only have a certain number of breaths in this lifetime and you want to live longer, you could practice breath of fire, for an hour a day, and you would accumulate extra living time if you want to look at life that way. Because doing breath of fire continuously is not even more than one breath, because it's just that movement of air up and down. It's not moving the air all the way into the lungs and all the way out of the lungs so that you would draw much carbon dioxide out of the system. So if you're doing breath of fire correctly, you're just moving a small amount of air in and out of the airway, which is pushing the air in and out, lower down into the system, but you're not drawing a lot of carbon dioxide out of the system. So you shouldn't be feeling dizzy and shaky and getting muscle cramps if you're doing breath of fire correctly. It should just be, something that you can maintain for a long period of time once you've gotten the feel for it. Thank you very much. Sadhana.